The night split open with a howl that carried the weight of a broken pack, sharp as the wind clawing through the frozen valley. Ethan Greywolf said, "The silence answers louder than voices ever could." His cry tore against the gale, raw with mourning, a desperate summons for kin who no longer stirred. Shadows shifted along the ridges, the storm bending trees as if mocking his plea. Luna Greywolf said, "The cold does not forgive, and the hunger waits in silence." Their paws pressed against the snow, trails of loss etched behind them, reminders of what once was. No warmth lingered, only echoes carried by the storm's hand. Lightning tore across the sky, and thunder rolled like the growl of an unseen predator, swallowing Ethan Greywolf's howl. The valley seemed to breed against them, alive yet uncaring, a vast judge with no heart. The silence after the howl weighed heavier than the cry itself, and the wolves lowered their heads, knowing the wind was the only reply they would ever receive. The valley answered with silence, and silence was a crueler predator than any claw. Ethan Greywolf said, "The pack is gone, yet the wind carries their names." His voice broke in the blizzard, swallowed before reaching the ridges. Luna Greywolf pressed closer, her amber eyes restless with fear, and said, "The cold is not an ally, Ethan. It steals as swiftly as hunger." The snow thickened, and each flake seemed to weigh like stone against their bodies. They walked slowly, paws sinking into drifts that erased their path as quickly as it was made. The wind circled, whistling like lost voices, returned only as mockery. Each step forward was heavy with memory, for every shadow in the storm reminded them of those who would never answer. And still, the wolves pressed on, their silence a pact against despair. The storm thickened, and every gust howled like a rival predator unseen. Ethan Greywolf said, "This land listens, but it does not speak." His body sagged, strength waning with each step. Luna Greywolf nudged his shoulder, her breath warm in the freezing dark, and said, "We must walk, or we become part of the silence." The earth beneath them cracked with frost, branches bowing under heavy snow, shadows twisting into shapes of things long gone. For a moment, the valley seemed alive, whispering in the scream of the wind, reminding them of all that had been taken. Their bodies ached, but the night did not yield. The storm paused for a fleeting moment, giving space for breath that felt stolen. Ethan Greywolf lifted his head, eyes narrowing into the dark, and said, "I hear nothing, Luna. Not even the heart of the valley." The silence weighed like stone, pressing down until even the snow seemed reluctant to fall. Luna Greywolf whispered, "The valley is not empty. It waits." Their ears flicked at unseen sounds, the stillness more suffocating than the storm itself. Fear curled like frost around their hearts, but they did not stop. The silence broke with a distant crack, sharp as bone splitting. Ethan Greywolf stiffened, hackles rising, his voice low. "Something watches." The wind carried scents buried under frost, faint but undeniable. Luna Greywolf said, "Not the pack, not the voices we hope for." Fear sharpened their pace, but hunger twisted deeper. Shadows shifted along the ridge, fleeting but real, and both wolves knew the valley no longer belonged to them. The silence of their missing kin was filled with a darker presence, patient and merciless. The storm eased, leaving the valley drowned in silence, broken only by shallow breaths. Ethan Greywolf said, "They are gone, but I still feel their paws beside us." Luna Greywolf brushed her muzzle against his shoulder, whispering, "Memory is heavier than snow." The frozen earth stretched endless, and each hollow drift carried scents long faded, reminders of warmth that no longer returned. They searched the emptiness for voices, but silence ruled. The night swallowed their cries, replacing them with echoes of what once was. Their bond held them upright, but grief clung like ice to bone. The valley pressed down, not as an enemy, but as a reminder that every howl left unanswered sharpened despair. The silence became unbearable. So Ethan Grey Wolf lifted his head again and forced another howl into the air. His throat cracked, but still he called. Ethan Grey Wolf said, "Let them hear me, even if the wind is the only one listening." The cry stretched across ridges, fading into nothing. Luna Grey Wolf trembled, her voice sharp with sorrow. "The pack cannot answer, Ethan, yet still you call them." Their paws pressed deeper into the ice, each step a struggle between hope and resignation. The howl faded, but in its absence the valley seemed to grow heavier, pressing them closer to collapse. The hunger gnawed deeper than grief, twisting like a silent predator inside. Ethan Grey Wolf lowered his head, his ribs faint beneath fur. Ethan Grey Wolf said, "We cannot mourn if we cannot endure." Luna Grey Wolf walked close, forcing her pace steady, and said, "If we fall, their memory dies with us." They pressed forward, though each breath grew harder, each step heavier. The snow stung their pads raw, yet they refused to stop. They carried not only their bodies, but the weight of vanished voices. They reached a ridge where the valley opened wide, a vast expanse of untouched snow. Ethan Grey Wolf stopped, his gaze heavy with memory, and said, "Here they once ran. Here their howls filled the air." Luna Grey Wolf stood beside him, whispering, "Now only the wind runs free." The emptiness spread before them yet. In that silence, a fragile bond anchored them together. The memory of voices no longer living weighed heavy, but their steps held on. The day's light dimmed into gray dusk. Shadows stretched across the valley as if to swallow them whole. Ethan Grey Wolf whispered to himself, "Their absence is louder than any storm." Luna Grey Wolf pressed closer, steadying his stance, and said, "We are still breathing, Ethan, and so their voices live in us." The night grew colder, yet their bond kept them from breaking entirely. With every step they carried the weight of absence, yet with it also a fragile thread of endurance. The wind returned sharp and merciless, lashing across their backs as though testing their resolve. Ethan Grey Wolf said, "It hunts us as surely as fangs." Luna Grey Wolf bared her teeth at the storm and whispered, "Let it come." Yet the cold crept in, freezing breath into shards of ice, and hunger burned hotter than the frost. The valley no longer felt like memory. It became a gauntlet of survival. Every sound seemed like threat, every shadow like an enemy. The hunger sharpened, and with it came the smell of prey drifting faint through the gale. Ethan Grey Wolf's eyes narrowed, nostrils flaring. Ethan Grey Wolf said, "Life runs near, though the storm tries to hide it." Luna Grey Wolf lowered herself, tense, whispering, "We cannot fail." Their bodies trembled, not with fear but with exhaustion, every muscle stretched thin. Still they stalked forward, driven by desperation more than strength. The scent led them into broken woods, trees black against snow, branches clawing like skeletal hands. Ethan Grey Wolf whispered, "They are close." His voice was ragged with hunger. Luna Grey Wolf pressed forward, ears twitching, saying, "Then we must risk the chase." Shadows shifted ahead, movement quick, a whisper of life that mocked their desperation. Every heartbeat thundered louder, driving them closer to the inevitable clash. Suddenly, prey burst from the undergrowth. A lone stag leaping across the snow, body glistening with frost, eyes wide with terror. Ethan Grey Wolf growled, "The valley offers us a choice." His muscles coiled, pain drowned beneath instinct. Luna Grey Wolf said, "If we fail, we die." Their legs surged forward, claws tearing into snow. The chase ignited with primal fury. The chase carved across the valley, snow exploding under hooves and paws. Ethan Grey Wolf's breath came in ragged bursts, each exhale a cloud of frost. Ethan Grey Wolf said, "It runs like death itself." Luna Grey Wolf forced her body forward, legs shaking with fatigue, shouting, "We cannot let it vanish!" Yet the stag's strength mocked their hunger. Pulling farther ahead, each heartbeat roared louder, the storm itself seeming to chase with them. The stag stumbled, breath tearing from its chest, but in its eyes was not defiance, only terror familiar to the wolves themselves. Ethan Grey Wolf slowed, realization breaking through hunger, and said, "It flees, as we do." From the same storm, Luna Grey Wolf faltered, her amber eyes softening, whispering, "We chase what also runs from death." The valley revealed its cruel symmetry. Predator and prey bound by the same fear. Snow-blinded paths, but truth cut clearer than scent. They were not hunters or hunted. They were all fragments of survival, scattered and desperate under the same sky. The stag collapsed onto its knees, chest heaving, steam rising like smoke. Ethan Grey Wolf stopped short, panting, ribs sharp, and said, "We are all hunted." The silence between predator and prey was heavier than the storm. Luna Grey Wolf lowered her gaze, whispering, "The valley chooses no side." Hunger growled in their bellies, but pity clawed deeper, twisting survival into grief. The snow muted every sound but the struggling breaths of three creatures bound together by despair. Then came another sound, a growl not born of storm or hunger but of rivals. From the shadow of trees, Victor Grey Wolf emerged, larger, shoulders scarred, eyes burning. Victor Grey Wolf said, "Survival is not shared." His voice tore like claws through silence. Ethan Grey Wolf bristled, baring his teeth, and said, "We do not fight the weak. We fight the storm." Luna Grey Wolf pressed forward, fur raised, whispering, "This is not a hunt. This is a grave." Yet Victor Grey Wolf advanced, the valley's cruelty wearing the face of their own blood. The valley turned witness as blood threatened to stain its snow. "Ow," Ethan Grey Wolf said. "Victor, the storm hunts us all." But Victor Grey Wolf snarled, "Only the strong remain." His voice carried no malice, only survival's cold truth. Luna Grey Wolf cried, "If we devour each other, the silence wins." Yet the storm grew louder, thunder cracking above as if mocking their words. For a moment, the valley itself seemed to breathe, revealing its hidden truth. Nature spared no one, not prey, not kin, not even memory. The truth split the valley. Survival was not about cruelty, nor mercy, but inevitability. Ethan Grey Wolf lowered his head, whispering, "We are ghosts already, Victor." Victor Grey Wolf bared teeth, but hesitated, eyes flicking toward the stag's still chest. Luna Grey Wolf stepped forward, voice trembling. "The pack is gone, but the wind remembers. If we tear ourselves apart, nothing remains." For the first time, silence returned, not as emptiness, but as judgment. The valley had spoken its hidden truth. Survival was never about choice, only consequence. The storm broke open with thunder that split the valley as Victor Grey Wolf lunged, his body crashing against Ethan Grey Wolf. Snow burst beneath their weight, fangs snapping like shattering stone. Ethan Grey Wolf snarled, "This is not the way, brother." Victor Grey Wolf bared teeth, his eyes burning, and said, "Survival has no brothers." Luna Grey Wolf cried out, circling, amber eyes wide with fear. The valley itself became a cage, wind roaring like an audience to their struggle. Their breaths came in clouds of frost, every strike echoing louder than the storm. Claws tore across fur, and blood marked the snow, staining purity with crimson. Ethan Grey Wolf staggered but struck back, his body trembling with rage and sorrow. He growled, "You fight shadows, Victor?" "Not me." Victor Grey Wolf slammed forward, breath steaming like fire, and shouted. The weak vanish with the wind. Luna Grey Wolf leapt between them, crying. The silence has claimed enough. Her voice broke against the storm, but still she stood, body trembling, holding them apart. The stag stirred, antlers twitching, breath ragged but alive. Its survival mirrored their own struggle. Ethan Grey Wolf saw it, chest heaving, and whispered, "Even prey refuses to fall." Victor Grey Wolf snarled, but his gaze flickered to the stag, confusion breaking through fury. Luna Grey Wolf said, "Do you see, Victor? The valley spares nothing, yet still it breathes." The storm howled, lightning streaking across sky as if to strike its judgment, forcing every creature beneath it to confront the truth. Survival was not victory, only continuation. The fight erupted again, more desperate, claws raking, howls tearing through the storm. Ethan Grey Wolf shouted, "I fight not for myself, but for what remains." Victor Grey Wolf slammed him down, jaws inches from his throat, roaring. Only the ruthless survive. Luna Grey Wolf lunged, dragging Victor Grey Wolf back, teeth sinking into his flank. Pain shattered silence with Victor Grey Wolf's howl. The valley shook with violence, as though every ghost of the lost pack screamed in unison. The climax tore through the valley. Blood, snow, and storm fused as one. Ethan Grey Wolf forced Victor Grey Wolf off, their bodies colliding again, exhausted and broken. Ethan Grey Wolf whispered, "We fight ghosts, not the storm." Victor Grey Wolf faltered, legs trembling, blood dripping into snow. Luna Grey Wolf stood between them, howling into the wind. "The pack is gone, but we remain." The cry cut through thunder, echoing like the voices of the lost. The storm paused, as though listening, and in that breathless silence the valley witnessed survival not as triumph but as defiance. The storm quieted, leaving only the sound of ragged breaths and the hiss of snow settling. Ethan Grey Wolf staggered, blood dripping onto the white ground, and whispered, "The valley takes more than it gives." Victor Grey Wolf limped, his flank torn, yet his eyes still burned with stubborn fire. Luna Grey Wolf pressed against Ethan Grey Wolf, her voice soft but unbroken. "We remain because we refuse silence." The stag lay still, life drained, its sacrifice carved into the snow. The valley seemed to watch, cold and unyielding, as though it had planned this ending all along. Snow buried the blood quickly, as though the valley refused to let memory last. Ethan Grey Wolf lowered his head, sorrow pressing harder than hunger. He whispered, "They are gone, yet I still hear them." Luna Grey Wolf brushed close, her eyes heavy with grief, saying, "Their howls live in us." Victor Grey Wolf snarled low, but his voice cracked. "We are all that remains." Silence pressed back, and in that silence, the truth grew. Survival was not victory, only continuation in the shadow of loss. The valley stretched empty, vast, and merciless. Ethan Grey Wolf raised his head, eyes scanning horizon where no pack remained. His voice broke as he whispered, "The wind carries their cries." Luna Grey Wolf lifted her gaze, answering softly, "We will carry them forward." Victor Grey Wolf stared at the horizon too, his body trembling, growling. "Then the silence will not erase us." The storm had taken, but in its wake came the bitter truth. They were survivors only because others had fallen. The night returned, darker than before, but quieter. Ethan Grey Wolf whispered, "The valley does not forgive, yet it remembers." Luna Grey Wolf pressed against him, her eyes glimmering. "We are its memory now." Victor Grey Wolf stood apart, staring at the stag's still body, voice low. "It gave everything for us to breathe." The silence after was heavy, not cruel, but final, as though the valley itself demanded acknowledgement. No storm, no rival, only inevitability. The cost of survival laid bare. The storm passed entirely, leaving the valley hushed under a heavy sky. Ethan Grey Wolf stood tall, despite his wounds, whispering, "We endure, even if nothing answers." Luna Grey Wolf raised her head beside him, saying, "The silence cannot steal us." Victor Grey Wolf lowered himself into snow, his strength breaking, growling faintly. "Survival is all that remains." The valley accepted their voices without reply, vast and eternal. What had begun in chaos ended in inevitability. Not triumph, not mercy, but continuation. The valley lay heavy with silence, the storm gone, yet the weight of loss louder than thunder. Ethan Grey Wolf stood trembling, eyes hollow, and whispered, "The wind carries their absence." Luna Grey Wolf pressed beside him, voice steady but soft. "We remain, Ethan Grey Wolf, and that must be enough." Victor Grey Wolf sank into the snow, eyes dim, saying, "Survival is not victory, only the echo of what has fallen." The air stilled as if listening, snowflakes drifting like ash, each one a memory descending from a vanished pack. "Dorgi!" Ethan Grey Wolf lifted his head toward the sky, a hollow cry spilling from his throat, raw and torn. Ethan Grey Wolf said, "Hear me, even if only the wind remains." His howl rose into emptiness, echoed by ridges, then faded into silence more terrible than sound. Luna Grey Wolf closed her eyes, whispering, "Their voices linger in yours." Victor Grey Wolf's ears twitched, his gaze distant, and he muttered, "The silence carries them still." The howl ended, leaving only the cold as witness. The howl traveled into memory, as if calling to shadows that would never return. Ethan Grey Wolf lowered his head, chest heaving, and said, "They do not answer." Luna Grey Wolf pressed close, amber eyes glowing faintly, whispering, "But they are not gone, Ethan Grey Wolf. Not while we breathe." Victor Grey Wolf growled low, softer than before. "The silence is their grave, and we are the markers." Snow fell gently, not cruel now, but final, burying blood and prints alike. The valley stretched endless, untouched once more, as if erasing what had been written in blood and struggle. Ethan Grey Wolf whispered, "The world does not remember us." Luna Grey Wolf raised her head, voice calm. "But we remember, Ethan Grey Wolf, and that is enough." Victor Grey Wolf's body trembled, but his gaze stayed fixed on the horizon. He said, "The wind will tell our story." The night seemed to pause, holding their words like fragile truths not meant to last. At last, silence reclaimed the valley. Ethan Grey Wolf stared into the void below, his voice a whisper sharp as broken glass. "The wind answers, but the pack cannot." Luna Grey Wolf stood close, her amber eyes wet yet resolute, saying, "We remain as their echo." Victor Grey Wolf bowed his scarred head, muttering, "The silence is forever." The valley gave no reply, but in that stillness their voices carried, not as cries of survival, but as the final echo of lives bound by loss.